our workshop on how to buy a car. So this is our like soft, open test run because we're planning on giving this workshop in the community in October and November. We already have one planned for Springfield on October 14th, so we're so thrilled to have everybody here to see how it goes. We have 3 stellar students who have tons of expertise who are going to tell you all about how to buy a car, and they worked so hard on putting this presentation together. I'm so impressed by each of them. But I also wanted to welcome our guests from OCJ. Hi, welcome, come on in, come on in. Help yourself to some snacks and comic books on car buying.
Thank you.
We just got started. Okay, so just a little bit of context for this whole program. So this program is made possible by the Consumer Protection Research Program, which is funded with leftover money from a lawsuit that was filed against BP for overcharging people using debit cards at the gas pump. So there was leftover money, and that's what funds this program, and also our partners at Oregon Consumer Justice, who are helping us with the grant as well and work in partnership with us. And so we're really thrilled to have them here today. We have Grace Hashibushi from the Oregon Consumer Justice side, and then we have Taylor Westlund, one of our grads from 2024, who works for OCJ Law, the OCJ Law Firm. And Taylor's going to join the panel at the very end. So let me just introduce the students who are going to be presenting today as well. So we have Marissa Fonstock. Marissa's a third-year law student, and Marissa grew up in the auto business because her family owns a used car dealership, and so she spent years working in the used car dealership. So she's going to tell us her advice for people who are buying a used car and how to avoid red flags. And then we also have Mohammed Yahya with us today. He's a second-year law student, and he has an accounting and tax background. And he spent many years teaching financial literacy in the community in Portland for people who have barriers to access to good information about finances. So he's going to share his expertise about finance and accounting with us today and understanding loan terms. And then we have Derek Woolley, a second-year law student. And Derek has bought and sold more than 24 cars since he was 15 years old. So he knows all about buying and selling new or used cars. So we're thrilled to have each of them here today. They put this presentation together, and well, with that, I'll turn this over to them. We're going to talk for about half an hour, and then we're going to have a Q&A.
My name is Marissa Fonstock, and I'm a current 3L here at the law school. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to protect yourself when buying a new or used car. As Professor Tippett said, my background is that I grew up working at my family's small used car business. I worked there for about 8 years, and in that process I learned just a few tips and tricks on how to protect yourself. So I'm excited to share those with you today.
Is it not cooperating? I think you just go forward and back. There we go. Yeah.
Okay, so here are just some big picture pieces of advice. So before you even walk into a sale, a good first thing to think about is financing. So it's best to get a pre-approved loan from your bank or credit union, but if you do have to engage in in-house financing, we'll talk a little bit later about how to do that safely. It's also good to know your budget and include in this any key features you're looking for in a car, such as Apple CarPlay, for example. And also decide where you want to buy a new or used car. Do you want to buy from a dealership or from a private party? And these offer some various pros and cons, which I'll get into a little bit later. Additionally, it's a good idea to bring a trusted friend, someone with mechanical knowledge or knowledge of the auto industry, or just a buddy to be there as someone to help you sense out red flags. Additionally, doing your research can be a great tool to protect yourself. You can use tools like Carfax, AutoCheck, and Kelley Blue Book, and these can be used as valuation tools to give you an idea of the approximate value of a vehicle you're looking to buy. And it can also help to show you a vehicle's history, including an accident history. So these can be really valuable tools, and in order to utilize these, you need a vehicle's VIN number, which is just a vehicle's identification number, and every vehicle has a unique one. So always make sure you ask for this piece of information before you go through with the sale. Additionally, shop around, wait for deals, and generally be willing to take your time in this process. And now I'm going to hand the presentation over to Mohammed to talk a little bit more about financing.
Thank you, Marissa. It's good to have you guys here. As Professor Tippett mentioned, my background is in accounting, but I realized understanding financing has less to do with numbers and more to do with just taking your time and making sure you know what the terms mean. The various communities that I work with, a lot of times there's a language barrier and there's things that make it difficult for them to understand those components. And so I really have to take even more time to explain things to them and make sure they understand what's going on. So financing, essentially, all it is that you are borrowing money and then you are paying that back over time with interest. So the first main term that we always hear is APR. You hear APR everywhere in all the commercials, APR percentage. All APR is the cost of borrowing that money annually. So it stands for annual percentage rate. It means whatever amount of money you borrow now, what you will have to pay on top of that back on a per year basis or per month basis. So the second term is the long term, which is the amount of time it will take you to pay that money back. So when you finance, a lot of times you'll hear 5 years or 7 years, and so that's how long you are paying monthly to pay back whatever amount you borrowed to purchase the car in the moment. And then there's the monthly payments, which is the amount that you pay monthly, and then there's the total cost. So one of the things that dealerships do often is they try to get you to focus on the monthly payments rather than the total cost. And so they'll say, oh, it's only $300 a month and you get to have this brand new car. So in your mind, you're thinking, oh, $300 is nothing. But really, the less the payments that you make per month are, the longer that you will be paying that money back. And the longer that you're paying that money back, the more interest that you're paying. And so your total cost actually will go up if you pay less monthly. So always check the total cost. That's the main important thing. When you go to a dealership, always say, hey, how much am I paying total over this amount of times? How much does this cost? And then you will see really the difference between the value of the car and what you have to pay back. So, yeah, so some tips for financing a car. One thing that a lot of people don't know, especially people from immigrant backgrounds or people who are not familiar with the financing system in America, is that you can get pre-approved for a loan before you even come into a dealership. So you can go to a bank or a credit union and you can ask them for a loan to purchase a car. They will give you the actual percentage of interest which you're supposed to be paying. But what dealerships will do is that they'll try to then act like a middleman between you and the bank, and so they'll offer you their own financing deal and add more interest on top of that, and that's their profit, really. So go directly to the bank and go directly to a credit union and say, hey, I want a loan to buy a car. Get pre-approved, and then you can come in with some kind of leverage and you can have some ground to stand on, and you'll see if the dealership is being reasonable or not. And always compare, like I said earlier, the total cost, not just the monthly cost, because that is a huge trap. Look at the total entire cost, and sometimes you would rather pay more monthly just so you can pay it off quicker than to try to pay less monthly and pay a lot of interest over time, which leads us to down payments. So upfront, you can put down an amount of money, and that takes, essentially it just means you'll borrow less money. So whatever you pay now, and whatever then loan that you'll want, you can balance it out with the down payment. And that in itself will lower the interest that you pay over time. So always try to put up as much as you can up front, because whatever, $1,000 that you put down now will save you a lot more than $1,000 that you have to pay back. So really put a down payment. And the most important thing actually is to take your time and don't rush. You can bring somebody who understands these things with you. You don't have to make a decision at that time and in that place, in that moment. Whatever deal they're offering you today, they'll offer you the same deal, if not better, tomorrow. So just don't rush. The car salesman's greatest tactic is to try to get you to feel like you have to make a decision very, very quickly. They capitalize on just rushing you and saying, just sign now and just worry about everything later. You do not want to do that. You want to take your time and make a smart financial decision. And so now I'm going to pass it back to Marissa, who will talk about trade-ins. And so trade-ins kind of operate similar to a down payment, really. You you trade in, and whatever that value is will reduce whatever you have to pay back.
Thank you, Mohammed, for that introduction. So now that you've thought a little bit about financing, a good next step would be to think about if you want to trade in your old vehicle when buying a new or used car. So in Oregon, we don't have the benefit of trade-ins negating sales tax liability because we don't have sales tax, but doing a trade-in can still be a good option if you don't have time to sell your car on your own. As with any other part of the car buying process, you want to do your research. You can utilize tools like Carfax and Carvana, which offer online appraisal tools. These can kind of give you an approximate value of what your old car might be worth. And you can also use Kelley Blue Book, which will give you retail, private party, and trade-in values for your car. Now when it comes to a trade-in offer, you want to get as close to Kelley Blue Book's retail or private party value as possible. But if you don't get a trade-in offer that you're happy with or that you find reasonable, don't worry, you can always sell your car on your own, and you might get a better deal this way as well. So now it's good to think about where you want to buy your car. Do you want to buy from a dealership or from a private party? Now in Oregon, dealers do offer certain legal protections. So we have something called Oregon's Unlawful Trade Practices Act. And this is essentially a series of laws that protects against the misrepresentation of goods in the course of the sale. So when applied to a car dealership, this means that the dealer has a duty to disclose any known defects to you, to offer you a vehicle condition report, and to honor any implied warranties unless waived. Private parties, on the other hand, are not typically subject to these laws unless they're selling a car in the course of their usual business. But if it's just a family selling their old car one time, these laws would typically not apply. So this is something to consider. Private parties can still provide a good option though. They can sometimes offer lower prices or be more negotiable. So it's good to weigh the pros and cons here. Additionally, no matter who you buy from, a dealer or a private party, both of these types of sellers need to sign off a valid title and a valid bill of sale to you. A title shows that the vehicle is yours, and a bill of sale shows that the sale happened. So these are really important documents in proving your ownership of the vehicle, and you want to make sure you get both of these signed no matter who you buy from. So now let's talk a little bit about negotiation. Negotiation is pretty much par for the course when it comes to buying, especially a used car. So it's good to be prepared and do your research beforehand. A good place to start is thinking about some key values. So first think about what you think a fair value for the car you want to buy would be. You can use your tools like Carfax and Kelley Blue Book to kind of influence this value and come up with something that you think is reasonable. Additionally, think about what value at which you would walk away or what the most you would pay for the vehicle would be. And have these numbers written down before you walk into a sale so you don't feel kind of taken advantage of in the moment by pushy salespeople. Additionally, if you're financing, you could consider negotiating your financing terms, such as your APR and your loan duration, and this might help you save some money in the long run as well. Now, aside from numbers, there's a few other things to think about when you're doing a negotiation. First of all, you always want to make sure you do a test drive of the vehicle, make sure it runs, and you also want to do a pre-sale inspection. This is basically where you bring the car to a mechanic, or you have a mechanic come to the car, and they just do a quick little once over, make sure there's no glaring mechanical issues, and this just makes sure that you are getting what you're paying for. So these are really important. And additionally, you're going to want to ask the seller for some key information before you leave the negotiation. So of course, get that vehicle's VIN number so you can know the vehicle's history, and ask if there's any warranties already on the vehicle. And if you'd like to purchase one, you could ask about this as well. And you're also going to want to ask about any additional costs and fees that are going to be added to that sticker price of the car, so you know how much you're paying in total at the end of the day. So next, let's talk about some red flags. So buying a car can be grounds for scammers sometimes, so it's good to just be aware of some common red flags and know these so you can kind of protect yourself. This is just a basic list, but I'll go over these in some detail. So first, of course, if the seller will not give you the vehicle's VIN number, like I said, this is a huge red flag. First of all, you want to be able to know the vehicle's history, and also the biggest concern with this is that you want to know that the vehicle doesn't have a salvage title. This just means that the vehicle might have been in a flood or a fire or a major accident, and the insurance company declared the vehicle a total loss. So this is really important information when it comes to both the resale value of the vehicle and how the vehicle is going to perform when it's under your care. So always get this VIN number, and if a seller is hiding this from you, this is a huge red flag. And additionally, you want to make sure you get all of the service records for the vehicle, which also shows kind of the history of the vehicle and can kind of tell a story of where it has been. So these can show ownership history as well as kind of where the vehicle has been geographically. Like for example, if it's been on the East Coast, it might have accumulated some rust in this process. You can tell this from the service records. So this is really important information, and if the seller is hiding service records from you, they could be hiding ownership history, so this could be a red flag as well. It's also something to look out for if the seller won't disclose additional costs and fees to you, or makes misrepresentations or lies to you. If you catch a seller in a lie at all, I would recommend walking away. If a seller is willing to lie to you about something small, they're probably willing to lie to you about something bigger, so I would always just walk away, in this case, to avoid getting involved in a scam. It's also a red flag if the seller won't allow you to do a pre-sale inspection. Like I said, this should just be a really quick once-over, and there should be no reason why a seller would say no to this unless they're hiding some sort of mechanical issue with the car. And of course, if a seller won't sign over a bill of sale or a title, these are really important documents, like I said, to prove that the car is yours. So always get these signed over before you walk away from a sale. It can also be a red flag if the seller is a private party and they won't accompany you to the bank or to the DMV, or if they want you to pay in a way that makes you uncomfortable, such as all in cash. It's really best practice to pay with a bank check, so this could be a time to walk away as well. And lastly, of course, if the seller wants to take your money and won't show you the vehicle that you're supposed to buy, this could be a type of scam as well. In general, it's good to know that you can always walk away, and if you feel uncomfortable, I would recommend walking away. In my experience working with my family and buying cars for their small business, there are quite a lot of scams out there when it comes to car buying, so it is just good to walk away if you ever feel uncomfortable. If you get that gut feeling like you're involved in a scam, walk away. And yeah, it's always better to be safe than sorry. And you can always go back to a deal, but it can kind of be hard to get out of a scam once you're involved in one. So if you ever feel uncomfortable or pressured, or see any of these red flags, I would really recommend to walk away. And now I'm going to hand the presentation back to Mohammed to discuss some red flags when it comes to financing.
Thank you, Marissa. So as Marissa is saying, the auto industry is full of a lot of scams and a lot of scammers. And I wouldn't say every dealership is a scammer or even go as far as to say they're scammers in general, but they do a lot of underhanded tricks and tactics. And so one of their favorite tricks is something called the yo-yo spot delivery tactic, which is just like it says, it's like a yo-yo, like they pull you in and then they pull back. So they'll offer you a financing deal and tell you just take the car home while we're waiting for you to be approved. And you take the car home and your kids love the car and the family loves the car, you guys are enjoying it, and then they'll call you a couple of days later and say, oh, actually you were denied for whatever reason and we want to change the terms to this, this, and this. And so you're kind of already like 1 foot in, you're invested a little, and they're like, oh, but don't worry, it's only 1 or 2% more APR, or it's only 2 years longer, or it's only this much money more, which really is calculated out to be a lot more money for you to be paying over time. Now in Oregon, a bill was passed in May of 2024 where it's illegal to actually change financing terms once it's been agreed on, but they'll still try very clever ways to get you to just really win, really. So always be careful for these spot delivery tricks. And then the hidden add-ons and rate markups. So they're very good at convincing you that you need things that you don't actually need. And especially for people who are not accustomed to their culture or who have a language barrier, it's very easy for them to be pulled in by this and to be fooled into just extra features for the car that are basically useless for them, or warranties that don't actually do anything for them, or things that just add thousands of dollars that they have to pay over time. And remember, you're borrowing money, so whatever it is that add-on cost, you're actually going to be paying back more than that. And then there is the buy here, pay here, which Derek actually is going to talk about and explain in detail after me. But buy here, pay here basically is the financing offer that the dealerships offer you. And so, as Marisa said, and as you guys are going to hear a lot, taking your time is the best consumer protection. So there are all these laws in place, but it's very hard for those laws to actually work in effect and in real time. And it's costly, and you have to go to court, and there's a lot of things that would make it hard for you to be protected by those laws. So taking your time is the best thing you could do for yourself. And so Derek is going to talk about buy here, pay here.
Thanks, Mohammed. All right. So I wanted to take a minute to talk about how to safely engage with buy here, pay here lots. These are lots that generally target people with poor or non-existent credit. I bought my first finance vehicle from a lot like this, and they can be pretty predatory in nature, just because when you get to these kind of lots, you don't have a lot of options a lot of time. And as a lot of us may know, owning a vehicle isn't quite as optional as it seems, especially if you have to get to work. I wanted to kind of rewind back when I was fresh out of high school, 18-year-old, back in 2009, so this is right in the depth of the housing crisis. I had a job at the airport, which I had to get to at 4:30 in the morning. That's before buses were running or anything, and I really needed to hold on to that job. So when I had some vehicle insecurity, I was kind of pushed into going with a buy here, pay here lot, as I didn't have any credit or financial history. And I just kind of felt almost shame for it. And I'm just kind of here to say that this is not ideal, but if you have to shop at a place like this, you can make it work for you, and you can actually use your purchase as a tool to kind of push you into a better financial setting and have more financial literacy. So if you have to shop at a place like this, it's not the end of the world. Don't feel so bad. Don't feel shameful about it. You can turn it into an asset. So the first thing I want to talk about is just to watch out for lemons and mechanical cover-ups. There's a lot of things that you can do to a car to make it look like it runs better than it does. That's going to be like putting fresh oil or transmission fluid into it, and just kind of like covering up the problems without actually addressing them. So it's really important just to have someone with you who knows a lot about vehicles and can kind of help spot these things. It may sound a little corny, but if you know a vehicle well, you can tell a lot about it just by sitting behind the wheel and like feeling the engine run. So just take your time, look for mechanical cover-ups, just be careful, and always just have someone with you. A good way to also spot mechanical cover-ups is to use the Carfax, because they'll have a lot of major work history or major accident history. So if you use your Carfax to kind of see what kind of work has been done, if you know there was a major engine overhaul or a transmission overhaul, then that's something else to watch out for, and just to be careful and double check. Another thing these buy here, pay here lots will do is have really strange financing terms and like repayment terms. When I got my vehicle from a buy here, pay here lot, I was actually making weekly payments. And they kind of obfuscate or complicate the deal, because a way they make money is to sell the financing and kind of set you up to fail. And then once they can repossess the car, they can then sell it again. So the car is almost an ancillary good. They're more selling the financing aspect of it and kind of setting you up for failure. So just double check all your deals. Just be really aware of your responsibilities as a consumer and be careful. Interest rates on these vehicles can be really, really high. It's because, like I mentioned earlier, they're for consumers who don't have a ton of options. So they can kind of have you cornered, and you can see high interest rates, or you can pay more for a vehicle than you would on Kelley Blue Book. Unfortunately, there's not a ton you can do about that except for just to negotiate. One way to kind of have more negotiating power is to have a big down payment. If you have 20–30% down payment, then you can negotiate the price or the terms more. Try to get more favorable terms that don't feel so bad or predatory. Everything is negotiable in these lots. The cars are marked up higher than the Kelley Blue Book or the street value, and always just negotiate. If you see something wrong with the car in the history, or there had been an accident, and you can use that as a tool to negotiate the price and the APR, and just pay it off as fast as you can. The faster you're out from under the thumb of these lots, the faster you can turn around and then get into a better car, get into a better deal. You just really want to get out of this deal as quickly as you can. Again, if you have to engage with this kind of lot, don't feel shame about it. There's nothing wrong with it. Just be careful, and just all the tools we're giving you, just turn it up to 10 and be really as careful as you can when you engage with these lots. But just in general, when you're buying vehicles, beware of unexpected costs, fees, and interest. There's no taxes in Oregon, so that's not going to be a surprise, but especially if you're buying from a third party, you're going to have to pay for registration and for insurance and for emissions. So just be ready to pay more to get your car actually on the road. And don't let those sneak up on you. If you put all your money onto the down payment and don't have money to register, it's going to be a problem. Watch out for add-ons and extras. Our advice to combat that is kind of know what you want going in. So if you need Apple Music or you need a security system, just know what you want and look for that. Don't be afraid to say no if they offer you extra stuff, especially if you're trying to save money. Yep, and just be careful about all those extra costs that may sneak up on you. Don't let them. This is about to keep a paperwork checklist, especially when you're dealing with a private seller purchase. As the consumer on these, the onus is on you to make sure all the paperwork is in the right order and is you're buying the right vehicle. So one thing we suggest is meeting the seller at the DMV so you can see all the records, and if you have any questions, they're already right there. Make sure you receive the correct title. So when you get the title from the third-party sellers, just check the VIN, check to see that the person you're buying the car from is listed on the title. Just double-check everything, because if something goes wrong in the private seller purchases, it's all on you to fix, and it's kind of your mistake. So just be very careful. Double-check the VIN, and don't try to buy these cars with cash. Come with the cashier's check or bank's check, like we mentioned earlier. When you're buying from a lot, you have more protection. There's stuff like the implied warrant of merchantability, which basically just guarantees that what you're buying is going to work. That doesn't apply to private sellers. So when you're buying a car from a private seller, just be really careful. Double, triple check all the numbers, all the paperwork. Make sure you're getting the right car and you're buying from the right person. This is an example of a bill of sale here, a template in Oregon. So if you can just print this off the ODOT website, or if you want to make your own, just make sure you have all this information. We're going to see stuff like the VIN, the person you're buying from, make sure it matches their name on the title. So this is just an example of what your bill of sale should look like. Be extra careful because, like I said, the onus is all on you from these private sellers. So be careful. Insurance is required before you drive off the lot. This also applies to private sellers too, so make sure as you're driving home that you have temporary insurance from your, if you already have existing insurance, you should be able to add it on, or you can always talk to parents or family members about getting temporary for the drive home. Just because you just bought the car, you can still get an insurance ticket or still get into an accident, so just protect yourself and make sure you're insured. And here's just some final things to wrap this up. From your friends, hopefully someone who knows cars can help you spot mechanical issues. This can also help when you're negotiating and trying to feel it out. Trust your gut, trust your friend. Never hurry, never hurry. Don't push on the gas pedal until you're in the car. There's no need to rush. If it's a good deal today, it'll still be a good deal tomorrow. Again, don't let the seller rush you. If you feel rushed, just walk away. If anything feels off, walk away. There's plenty of vehicles out there. There's plenty of car lots out there. Don't ever feel pressured. Just don't ever feel rushed. And if you keep all these things in mind, then you can protect yourself and start building your financial portfolio so it's easier next time. So that is the end of our presentation. So I think we want to open up the floor for questions.
Great, so we have our panelists here, and we also have Taylor here who can answer any questions you have about buying a new or used car.
Well,
Yeah.
how about you go? Let me start first.
Is there anything for buying out of state? I'm not from this state. Is there any limitations or anything like that?
What do you mean by limitations?
I don't know. Is there a process? I can just buy a car here?
Yeah, but you would have to register it in Oregon. So maybe Derek would know.
Yeah, you would have to register here in Oregon, unless you're buying it and transporting it across the state. And if you are, just make sure you're insured. I think you should be able to buy a car here
Yeah.
as out of state.
It's
So.
fairly common. For my parents' small business, they're based in Washington, and they bought cars in Oregon and California numerous times, just to make sure that you register it at like the correct DMV where you're gonna drive it.
So I have to get like a driver's license here?
No, you don't need a driver's license here. The rules on that are based on like how long you live here and where your permanent residence is, but definitely like get the car registered at the DMV and follow any protocol as far as getting the correct state license plate, because sometimes law enforcement does care about that.
Yeah, there are actually like laws in place where if you move somewhere, you're supposed to like update your ID within I think 3 or 4 months. I want to say something like that. So, like if you're living here in Oregon, it's just easier just to switch over to get a license here, and it'll help with stuff like going to school and just like protecting yourself. So.
Yeah, but then again, that's not a requirement.
Yeah, sometimes they're easier on students when it comes to like ID changes, but if you're planning on staying in Oregon like after school, I would definitely recommend getting your license switched over as well.
Yeah.
This is a non-legal question. So in terms of just trying to avoid buying or purchasing a lemon, I guess, right? If I were doing this, I would definitely get an inspection, but that aside, are there any obvious tells of something to avoid? I mean, I guess get an inspection and also avoid certain lots where the risk might be a little bit higher, but yeah, what would you point to as like more obvious tells to avoid with a bad purchase?
Yeah, so that's kind of my expertise right there. So there are definitely some easy things that you can do. One thing that I suggest doing is to get actually behind the wheel, and if you like hold onto the wheel and you have your foot on the pedal, you can kind of feel the engine. And if you feel like a rhythmic beats, if it feels like it's off, then you'll be able to feel it right there. It should be like very steady, should run steadily. There should be no like spikes or jumps as the engine idles. The other quick things that you can do is check the fluids. So always check your oil. You can just like Google what does clean oil look like. And if you pull the oil up and it looks milky or there's metallic shavings in there, that's a for sure sign that the radiator's broken or you're leaking transmission fluid. So check the transmission fluid, check the oil, feel the engine, just feel, if it feels steady, it should feel like a heartbeat almost, like just as steady as it is. If it's jumping up and down, you know that there's a problem with your engine. So the two biggest things when buying used vehicles are going to be problems with the engine, problem with transmission. Everything else is like relatively inexpensive to fix. So if you have a strong sound engine and a strong sound transmission, you should be in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
No, what about extra costs and fees that might get tacked on? I was curious about you mentioned warranty with extended warranties. What does that mean?
So, I mean, are you talking about with buying a used car or with financing a new car?
I don't even know.
So when it comes to financing a new car, a lot of times you have a brand new car that has no issues, no problems, works perfectly fine, and then they offer you the manufacturer's warranty, but then the dealership tries to give you their own warranty. And sometimes their own warranty is much longer and it's basically useless. So it's kind of like if you don't need the warranty for that long, or if it's already covered by the manufacturer's warranty, there's no reason to pay the dealership just extra money just to insure something that's already kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that just like Mohammed said, watch out for buying redundant warranty, and just read the terms of your warranty, because a lot of times they're really convoluted, and like they only cover if it fails in this certain way in this time frame. So just like knowing what your warranty offers is good. I just coming from like a background with we don't have a ton of money. I'm always like pretty leery about third-party warranties or like dealer warranties. I get kind of it almost seems like not maybe worth it, but if you have the extra income and you want to protect yourself, yeah, just know the terms for sure, and just the more narrow it is, the less likely it is that it will apply to your problem. So if you can find a wider manufacturer warranty, that also will show that like the manufacturer trusts that this vehicle works too. So if it just covers like engine death in general, as opposed to like if the engine goes out in this particular way in this time frame, then that's a good sign that you're buying a car that works well.
I have some questions.
Marissa, you had mentioned earlier to get a bank check as opposed to cash, and I was curious if you could just elaborate more on that, because I'm just curious why that's important.
Yeah, mostly just so that the seller doesn't try to it first of all creates like a record of the sale, and if the seller wants you to pay for something all in cash, there could be like a few reasons why that could be a red flag. I mean, they could be conducting business illegally, so that's something to check for. They could be saying they're a private seller, but they're not actually a private seller. They sell cars for their business and they're trying to kind of get away from tax liability. And those kinds of sellers can be something to look out for, because like I said, if they're lying about what they do for their business, they could also be lying about features of the car and how well it works. So that is just something to look out for. Also, just if a seller wants to do things off the record, that generally could be a red flag, and that they want to skip town afterward and leave you with a car that's not what they represented. So yeah, it's best to have as many records of things as possible, and also make sure you're not working with a shady kind of under the counter kind of seller.
That was really helpful. Derek, you had mentioned, and Professor Chin kind of asked the question I wanted to ask, but I want to go a little bit more in depth. You were talking about spikes or jumps. Is that on the dashboard, or is it you're feeling it on the accelerator? What is that kind of?
Yeah, there's different ways to do it. So you can feel it through the gas pedal itself. So when you just place your foot on the gas pedal, you should be able to feel the rhythm of the engine, especially on older vehicles. It's more pronounced. The other thing that you can do, and another great way to check for arrhythmic engine operation, is to go back behind the muffler, just place your hand behind it, and you'll actually feel little puffs of air. And if it sounds rhythmic or feels rhythmic, then you know your engine's running correctly. If it's speeding up and slowing down, or gets heavier and lighter, then you know there's some kind of misfire going on.
And what type of test driving should you do? I imagine it shouldn't just be around the block. How long should you be driving to notice those things, or?
Yeah, you want to drive it pretty much as they'll let you. So every time I bought a vehicle from an individual, we always go highway. I've never bought a vehicle I didn't take on the highway. I just want to feel how it accelerates, and just so much is revealed when you're going 50 miles per hour. It's just stuff from the sockets in the front, the suspension. There's so much that you can tell just from getting up to speed, and then also feeling it accelerate. And another important test is when you're pushing on the accelerator then stop. It should be this. You should feel it stop, but it shouldn't be this violent lurching. So that's another way to tell if you're misfiring too. So get it up to speed for sure. Try turning left, try turning right, go in reverse. If it has four-wheel drive, engage the four-wheel drive, disengage the four-wheel drive. Just do everything that you're going to do normally, So just drive it until they tell you to stop.
And then I had a question for Mohammed as well. I was curious if there's any other extras we should be looking out on, or your thoughts on those oil change packages you can buy beforehand. It's pay $2,000 now and oil changes.
Yeah. So add-ons could be anything, honestly. I remember when my dad financed our first car with a van, and we got a bike rack that we never ever used, but somehow they convinced us that we needed it. I don't know how. So there's a lot of things they can throw in there. As far as the oil change and the transmission fluid, servicing the car is good. It's helpful for a lot of people, but at the same time, if it depends the length of time that they're trying to get you to pay for as well. And also remember that you're borrowing money, so you're paying with borrowed money for all of these things. So maybe it's better to wait till you pay off the car and then just pay for your own oil changes or pay for because it will cost more now than it would later on.
And maybe just about changing oil. I think getting your hands in there and doing it yourself is a great way to get more familiar with your vehicle. And then the more familiar you are with the vehicle, the better you are at spotting problems that come up. So, I would invite anyone to change their own oil, just kind of learn how to do it. Small jobs, just every small job that you successfully accomplish is something now in the tool belt as a consumer. And it'll add more versatility to you as a car owner too. So.
There you go. That's probably the best financial decision, just to do it yourself and not finance oil changes. And to be honest, if you're in a position where you have to borrow money anyways, it's probably better that you don't pay for things like that and just learn how to do it yourself.
Curious, is a refusal to remove add-ons a red flag? Or is it kind of industry practice? Because I know a lot of I know friends who are who work in this industry, and sometimes they'll just be yeah, we don't remove that.
What's an example of like an add-on that would ever remove?
So if you don't want the paint protectant, or if you don't want, because sometimes like you go and it's just add-on after add-on after add-on, it's like $10,000, $12,000. They go, oh, this is part of the vehicle, it would cost us money to remove it. Like I understand the warranties and stuff, like asking that stuff to be removed, but if it's like the bike rack you're talking about, and they're like, no, we can't, is that a red flag, or is that kind of industry practice?
So, I mean, if it's already built into the car, maybe it's not that much of a red flag, but what would be a red flag is if they didn't offer you like a different model of the car that didn't have chain polish or something like that. So if they're trying to trap you with just that, then it's a red flag for sure.
Thank you.
In general, they are like making money off add-ons, so I'd say it is generally a red flag, but some things are truly already in the car, like Apple CarPlay might be something they can't take out, but they definitely should offer you alternatives, like Mohammed said.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think also if you're paying extra for a feature that's part of the car, I think that would kind of put me on edge right there. It's like if you're buying a used vehicle that has a Bluetooth radio and like they're trying to charge you extra for that, I'd be like, really? It's just part of the car.
Absolutely.
So it's like, yeah, just negotiate, ask questions, just double check all the numbers. That's a lot of our advice, just boils down to look at the numbers as close as you can and take as much time as you can. So I think if the life of the cell rested on Apple Play Music, I think they would probably work with it most of the time, you know.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any more questions? Yeah.
Like, can you recommend any credit unions? And then you were talking about like monthly payments, like how a lower monthly payment isn't like a good idea, but like what if that's like what you can afford? Is there like a way, does your loan determine what kind of car you're trying to look for, and then how do you go from there?
Yeah, so really a lot of it depends on what your credit score is and what your credit history is. And so what the bank offers you or what the credit union offers you is kind of based on your borrowing history. So if you don't have credit history at all, a lot of times banks and credit unions will just offer you what they offer anybody else, which is a certain percentage APR or whatever it is. If you're trying to get a more expensive car, then it can get very tricky without a credit history. If you can't afford it and you have to pay lower monthly payments, I think what the most realistic thing would be is to get a less expensive car that they will loan you money for. And so try to really limit that amount of time that you're paying back that loan, because that's where most people end up falling into, just paying much more for the value of a car that's like, sometimes people pay double what the car is actually worth just because they're stuck in that like financing cycle. And then you said what credit unions, honestly there's so many credit unions, and there's credit unions for different levels of credit, and so like there's On Point, or honestly there's hundreds, so just check as many as Derek.
Yeah, I think local credit unions are where I would start for sure. They just are the most personalized, and they'll work with you where they can. If you are in a situation where like a low monthly payment is all you can afford, I think just being really careful about the rest of the stuff that you can't control is a good way to do it. And I've been in a situation where like they just have me back into a corner, I needed that car, I would lose my job. And so I got into a pretty bad deal, but it ended up working out well because I was able to stay on top of it and keep my vehicle running, and then eventually, you know, resell it and use it to get a nicer vehicle. So if you have to keep that low payment and that's all you can afford, just be careful about everything else, you know, and just take care of yourself and realize that you're investing into an asset that you can then use to enrich yourself later or to make this process easier next time. And you're also like building your credit at the same time. So it's like, it's not the end of the world if you're in a deal that's not like the best deal in the world, because you're building your financial history, you're building your credit, and you're also like investing into an asset that you can turn around and sell eventually. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess as a follow-up, is that what do you think is like general like too long of a loan to be paying, or too like an ideal length of time, and also like a good interest rate?
Okay, so as far as the length, usually standard is like 5 years. That's usually what they try to get you into. If you could pay back in less than 5 years, that would be great, but a lot of times people can't, so that's why that tends to be the number most people fall into. If you can't afford a down payment, that also can affect the length of time. I would say try not to go over 5 years, honestly, and try to go less if you can. As far as the APR percentage, it really changes with the market. And so like over the last couple of years, I think the average APR went up like 2% or so to like 6.5. I think it's like the average APR percentage. And it used to be like 4.5 just a couple years ago. So right now is really actually a very bad time to borrow money to buy a car, just because cars are very expensive and the market is very bad. But those are things you also can't control. So the less the better always, and try not to go too far above whatever the current market APR percentage is.
Yeah, and if you do have a 5-year loan term, then my advice is like to pay as much early as you can. If there's any way for you just to put an extra couple hundred at the start, then you'll start paying down the actual car itself and not just paying on interest. Whereas like if you just make the minimum payments, then you're going to be paying mostly interest. So like if you can, if you're trying to keep a job or something, if you can put an extra $50, $100 even a month in, you'll start paying towards the car directly, and you'll start saving money that way. So that's why the biggest piece of advice for buy here, pay here lots is just like get out of there as soon as you can, get out of it, like pay it off as soon as you can, and just try to save money that way.
Some loan agreements, I haven't had personal experience with this, but like there's a penalty for paying something off early. Is that something you should be looking out for?
I think that should be a red flag. Yeah, and so they should allow you to pay it back, because you're borrowing money, so you should be able to pay it back in whatever time like you can afford to pay it back. And so if they try to keep you locked in to a period of time, even though you have the money before that, it's probably a red flag.
Is that something you've seen before?
Yeah, not personally, but I feel like I've heard of that concept. Maybe it's more in housing.
Well,
I think so, yeah. With cars, I feel like it's not very common, but I know what you're talking about, because sometimes they do that, so where they try to extend that time for as long as they can, or to keep you at least up to a certain amount of time. It's just another way for them to make money, so it's convenient for them.
Totally.
yeah, a lot of the money these lots, especially the buy here, pay here lots, are making money from the financing more so than the car.
Yeah.
So, that's interesting. I've never heard of that, but it sounds like very predatory to me.
Yeah, I
And
feel
some-
like I've heard that, yeah, it sounds very predatory.
When we're on a lot looking at vehicles, they always want to run our credit. It's a red flag if they don't haggle with us or let us look at vehicles without doing that, right? Because if we don't want that hard inquiry and to like be committed to that lot before we go elsewhere, like we should just walk away at that point, right?
So you're free to walk in there and look at whatever car you want without them running a
Gotcha.
credit check on you. And so if they are trying to do that, then that's very suspicious.
Right.
Especially if you show up to a lot with like a pre-approved deal,
Mhm.
then they don't ever need to look at your credit because you're just coming there already financed.
Right.
So, and I think that's our like kind of consensus is that you really want that pre-approved loan if you can.
Gotcha.
Just because that'll just like stop a lot of the predatory practices right there in the tracks because you're dealing with the credit union at that point, so, or a bank.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like you're coming in there and you have the money because you already have a deal to borrow the money.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Any other questions?
Yeah.
You
You go, and then you and then.
In terms of like the yo-yo tactic, what would be like the #1 indicator that you might be
Falling into
experiencing that? Yeah, like falling into it.
So if they tell you, if they say something like, okay, we'll let you know what your approval is in a couple of days, or if they say anything that makes you feel like they're waiting on something else, then they could try to change things on you at any second. So if it says like somewhere on the paper, it says suspect, I forgot how they term it, they have a way of saying like basically we'll get back to you on this part or whatever it is. So just always look for things that are still kind of hanging in the air. Yeah.
And then I believe you mentioned if they say like, oh, you can take the vehicle home, would that like should that be like an automatic like, maybe I should?
It's not, but if you guys have an agreement in place beforehand, that you know they cannot switch things up on you. And so, like I was saying earlier, the paper will say something like subject to prior approval or something like that, basically. And so they're basically saying, oh, you're taking this home, but there's still more conditions that need to be met, before. So yeah, just look out for those kind of things to where like things are not clear. If anything is not clear before you take the car home, then they could be liable at any moment to just change things up.
We were just talking with Grace earlier about this, and there's some new legislation that just happened recently, right? Where the window is even shortened, is what you were saying.
Exactly, yeah.
So there's less chances of that happening. if they're going through a lot here in Oregon. Yeah, that's a very predatory practice for sure. So just be careful. I think just don't rush is a big one. Don't be so like tied to going home with that car today, you know, because that's kind of how they'll get you. So just be ready to wait a day if you need to, or a weekend.
And
I got like two. Like, the first one is, should we be shopping around credit unions? Like, will they all offer us like different?
you definitely should, to answer your question, yeah. So you never know. Some could be much more favorable to you, so it doesn't hurt to try shop around.
And then, like at my house, my dad really likes leasing cars. Is buying better versus leasing?
The only difference with the lease is that at the end you don't own the car.
Yeah.
So you have to pay whatever the difference is between the car's worth and then whatever you paid up to. So yeah, it's another form of financing. It's just in the end you don't actually own the car yet until you pay the difference, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's like less pressure on you since you don't own it too. So it can be like kind of a give or take thing. If you're trying, like for myself as an 18-year-old, I was trying to get a vehicle so that I could then trade it in for better terms. You're not going to be able to do that with the leased car, you know.
But, sorry, not to cut you off, but a lot of times people lease cars because those cars are much more expensive. And so to own that car is almost impossible for them, so they'll just lease it for a certain amount of time, knowing at the end that they're not going to own this car.
Yeah, like I'd say with anything, like for leases, there are good deals out there that will allow you to drive a slightly nicer car than like someone might be able to buy, but there are also like scams out there where you will pay like a very large amount of money and you won't end up owning the car at the end. So definitely if you're going to do a lease, like do lots of research into how worth it of an investment it's actually going to be at the end of the day.
Yeah, and then that goes into all of the financing tips for you to look out for, because you could pay a high percentage, you could pay a lot of money, you could pay, like Marissa said, more than the actual value of the car and then not own the car, which a lot of people have done that before.
I think leasing is, I may be wrong about this, but it's for mostly for people with like pretty disposable income, right? It's kind of like if you don't need to like build your financial portfolio, but just like owning a vehicle can give you a lot of leverage in their next, you know, negotiation for your next nicer car. So.
Any more questions?
Do you have any like one-liners or any tips on how do you walk away? Like if you're feeling really pressured.
To know that whatever deal they give you today, they will give you probably a better deal tomorrow. So that should make you feel comfortable that they're really just like, they're trying to put you in a state where you feel frantic and you feel like you have to rush into something, and it's not real. You can come back tomorrow.
Be empowered by the space and the time that you have as the consumer. You're in the driver's seat, it's your deal, and then you're going to be the one who has to live with it and pay it off. So feel empowered at your ability to say no and your ability to turn around and walk out. Don't ever feel cornered or stuck.
Yeah, I'd say similar to that, practice assertiveness, be okay with saying like, okay, I'm gonna consider this and come back tomorrow, and then just walk away. I mean, it's easier said than done, but I think if you come in with that like confident, assertive tone, they're more willing to, or they're less willing to be like pushy with you, so that's important as well.
Thank you guys.
Awesome. Thank you